So welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video, and today I wanted to talk about New Mutants 98 in the CGC 9.8 white pages, and just what the market has done in the last year or two, because I've sort of noticed the price is kind of steadily declining, more for specifically the 9.8 white pages. Now, I do have a copy of my own. New Mutants 98. First, Deadpool obviously is the main reason why this is a key. Obviously, you got first Gideon and first Copycat as Domino at the time. But this issue has really become a classic cover, I would say, with the Rob Liefeld art. And also there's been some cover homages in the modern age that have taken this cover. But great cover. Great issue. Was glad to have picked up a copy about mid last year. But as I said, and the name of the video implies that there has been a slow, steady march down in price of New Mutants 98 in the CGC 9.8 white pages. So why could that be? Well, I think there's two main reasons basically. So the first reason being that New Mutants 98 is not very rare relatively in the 9.8 white pages. So what I mean by that is I just did a little bit of research yesterday on what I call the CGC 9.8 ratio. So of all New Mutants 98s, about, what were they? It's 19.8% of all graded New Mutants 98s are 9.8s. So that's quite high for a sort of key issue. If you remember in my last video with Amazing Spider-Man 300, I talked about how that's pretty rare in the CGC 9.8. So as a comparison, only 6% of Amazing Spider-Man 300s are 9.8s, whereas this one, 19.8% of New Mutants 98s are CGC 9.8s. So basically it's not very, very rare for a key issue in the 9.8 white pages. And I think that sort of has a lot to do with why the price hasn't really held up quite well in the last year and a half. And when I say the price hasn't held up, I'm saying like, maybe it's like $100 to $150 US less than what it was going for about 2 years ago. And I mean, we'll get into prices a little in more detail a little bit later. So that's the first reason. It's not, for a key issue, it's not very rare in the 9.8 white pages. And I mean, basically the reason for that is, Deadpool at first wasn't a real hot character when it first came out in the early 90s. So a lot of these issues just sat in dollar bins or sat with the New Mutants line and weren't really touched, weren't really sought after, and weren't very traded very much or handled that much. So apparently there was just a lot of them sitting around in really good shape. And 4 or 5 years ago now, when the first Deadpool movie came out, Deadpool just blew up, and obviously the first appearance of Deadpool is going to do really well when the movie came out, and it did do really well. So yeah, not very rare in the 9.8 white pages is the first reason. Second reason, just kind of alluded to, about 5 years ago that Deadpool movie came out and the issue skyrocketed, and now there's been another Deadpool, and right now there's no Deadpool movie, and you could see the issues sort of coming down and settling. Because you could sort of tell there's not a lot of maybe noobs in the market being attracted to the market from the movies and things like that. So you just have more of the hardcore collectors looking at the book, and the hardcore collectors are paying pretty close attention to the CGC census. And again, with about almost 20% of all graded New Mutants 98 being 9.8s. They're just not very rare in the high grade, so for collectors, it's not a super rare book in the 9.8. And I think you have collectors instead looking to go to something like an Amazing Spider-Man 300 instead of picking up the New Mutants 98. So, what have prices done in the last year or two? Well, this copy I purchased almost about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, and I bought it for, it was $1,090 Canadian. Yeah, so that's going to get you, kind of right around like $750, $800 American. Now, currently, just by looking on the internet and doing a little bit of research, there's been a couple New Mutants that have sold for, $700, $750, whereas, pick this one up for $800. And even when I was doing research for this one, I thought $800 was quite a good deal because you had some, in the past 6 months of the year before that, selling for $850, $900, even over $900 for some 9.8 white pages at some point. And that was more like 1 or 2 years ago. So basically you have the prices, where it was once $950, now you're looking at $750, $800 maybe if you pay up for a really good copy, possibly maybe a newsstand edition. So yeah, the prices are coming back in New Mutants 98. So overall, do I think this is an opportunity to buy? Or, maybe should you sell sort of into the price drop, thinking that there could be more of a price drop? Well, personally, I actually think right now it's starting to get into a bit of like a juicy buy situation. It's been about 2 years that the prices, I think, have been steadily declining. There's no, obviously, Deadpool movie out right this second, right now. So, the character itself is just kind of on the low a little bit. And if you've watched a couple of my other videos, maybe, you'll know that that's the kind of opportunity and situation that I like to buy in. And I know, we all can't do that all the time, and sometimes we want to, we get excited and we want to buy something that's super cool right away, and I'm guilty of doing that too. But ideally, you want to buy comic books when they're sort of on the low and not being talked about, and they're not, quote unquote hot with a new movie coming out or whatever it might be. And I think right now, first Deadpool, you're kind of in that situation where there's no movie, there's not a lot of hype, and you could probably pick up an issue, New Mutants 98, 9.8 white pages, at a decent price. So I do actually think that right now is a pretty good time to pick up a New Mutants 98. And I think what'll happen is, obviously we're kind of in a lull now, but over time, first appearances of like iconic characters, which I think Deadpool now, especially with the younger generation, is basically an iconic character. Over the long term, it's going to do really well, regardless of the movies coming out or whatever might happen, and I'm sure there will be more movies and stuff like that. But I think it's going to do really well over time, for the same reason why first appearance of Spider-Man does really well over time, or first appearance of, name any character you want from the kind of the Silver Copper Age, does really well. I think Deadpool will do really well over time. And I mean, if you take a look at Incredible Hulk 181, that's another issue that's kind of, for a Bronze Age book, it's pretty easy to get your hands on. It's well printed. And I would say this is sort of the modern version of that book, where it's easier to get your hands on in a really high grade at 9.8 white pages, easier to find. But as you know, with Incredible Hulk 181, the prices just keep going up, and it doesn't really matter because just the coolness of the character sort of takes over after a certain amount of time. So I don't know how long that will take, but I do think because, as I said, there's no Deadpool movie right now. Things are a bit on the low as far as hype with Deadpool. So I think now is a good time to pick it up, and you know, maybe you gotta hold on for another 2-3 years while the price goes down a little bit. But I think eventually, you know, first appearance of Deadpool, you know, it's going to be really popular, especially as, you know, kids right now who are teenagers and, you know, maybe just in their early 20s that love Deadpool, saw the movie when they were a teenager. You know, in 10 or 15 years, they're going to be wanting the first appearance of Deadpool when they're, you know, making decent money doing whatever they're doing. So I think in that sense, it's a really good buy right now, and it'll set up fine, even if maybe there is a bit of short-term pain because, yeah, there's not really too much hype right now for Deadpool. So yeah, that's what I think about New Mutants 98. Wanted to do a movie on it, or a video on it, just to because it is one of, you know, the keys to have from the modern age, and I'm lucky enough to have one. And I can't really say I've been hunting to buy another one. I don't really have it on my watch list as of now. I'm kind of just happy with the one copy now. But you know, always looking at the prices and just keeping my eye on it. And you know, maybe if a good auction comes in Canada, where I don't have to ship it over the border or whatever it might be, I might end up picking it up if the opportunity comes. So yeah, that's what I think about New Mutants 98 at this point. So yeah, you know what, I think if you don't have that issue and you're looking to maybe add it to your collection, I think it is a good time right now to add New Mutants 98 to your collection. So that'll be all for this video, just getting a bit of an overall impression of New Mutants 98 and what I think of the issue. So if you like the video, please keep watching, keep subscribing, and I got more of my collection here that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, and a lot of the tips and lessons I've learned in the last year and a half of kind of, you know, seriously putting in some pretty serious money in collecting all these comic books. So keep watching, keep subscribing, and I'll see you on the next video.